Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. It's Shumi's turn to tell where he's been, what he's been riding. I'll tell you. The Triumph Scrambler 400X.
X.
Right? Can we start right there? Why is it Scrambler 400X?
I don't know.
You don't?
I think, but X and Y come back to back. So the Y question following the X, I think, is completely natural.
Why?
Why? Why is it called the X?
Okay.
No, but officially we don't have an explanation of why there is a X, or if you prefer a cross.
Oh.
I don't know.
But the Speed didn't have anything like that, right? It was just the Speed.
No, we asked why after we finished riding the Speed 400 in many places, but the Speed 400 itself doesn't have a X, Y, Z, nothing attached to it.
Okay, fine. Back to the motorcycle. You spent a fair amount of time with it?
So the launch was at the same hotel in Kolad where the 390 Adventure was shown to us. On the 390 Adventure, basically we rode around the area and we came back. In this, because we bring the bikes to the studio and film it, they allowed us to bring the bike back. So what I did was, so I thought, how would I like somebody to use a Scrambler in their daily lives? So I left the hotel on a road which I am vaguely familiar with. Twisty. I know that the tarmac is good because people from Pune came to the venue on that road.
This is Tamini that you're talking
The Tamini Ghat road. But from Tamini, I took the Telbaila road, which I have seen as a 35-kilometer section of pure mud in the monsoon. I have seen it as brand new, narrow rural tarmac. I have seen it as rocks. So I have seen it in every shape. And I had absolutely no way of predicting what those 35 kilometers would be like. But it was critical that the bike did well there because there's also no help there.
Right.
Signal is very weak and you're literally between very, very sparsely located villages. So if you get stuck there, you're stuck for a good amount of time.
So guys, let me just explain. This is an extremely beautiful area of Maharashtra that Shumi is talking about. So he's climbed down from what would be the coastal area up to the Deccan Plateau, which is Tamini Ghat. And that's great tarmac, fairly wide roads, good fun roads to ride on. And then the road that he's referring to is the road that leads to Ambi Valley, which is Lonavala, right?
Yeah, so it comes out at the airstrip. From there, you get the Twisty road, which is the Ambi Valley
And it
approach
skirts
road.
the lake a little bit.
Yeah, all of that. And then you have the highway section back, which is about 60 odd kilometers of highway back to the office. So we've ridden this bike a little bit in traffic also in the process, in Mumbai city traffic. But a large part of it is outside. And I wanted that road to be unpredictable, which is how it turned out.
And a great mix of roads for the Scrambler, actually.
Absolutely brilliant. But we'll come to that in a minute.
Okay.
First, let's just get a clarity on what the difference between the Speed 400 and the 400 Scrambler is.
Okay.
So first, the engine is exactly the same. The only change they've made is the front sprocket is one tooth lower. That's it.
Okay.
So the Speed 400 is a 15-tooth front and the Scrambler, I think, has a 14-tooth front. And I'm going to suggest that if you have a Speed 400, I would totally spend the money to buy that sprocket, replace it and see what it feels like.
Okay.
Front sprockets are cheap. You will not have to replace your chain. Usually the chain adjustment enough to accommodate it. And the increase in liveliness of the motorcycle to me might make the Speed 400 quite a bit more interesting and easy to ride in the city. I would totally spend the money to try it. One. Second, the tank is not changed in any way, but the entire bike has been lifted by suspension. Right. So it's completely new suspension in the sense of the internals are not shared, the fluid level in the front fork is different, spring ratings, damping, everything is different. And it gives you 20 mm more of travel in the front and 30 mm more of travel at the back, which raises your ground clearance. So now the ground clearance is 195 millimeters, which raises your seat height. So it used to be 790 on the 400. Now it is 835 on the Scrambler.
That's significant.
Right. But the chassis itself has not been changed in any particular way. The seat, I think, is a little bit thicker on the Scrambler. So it will rise a little bit there.
The pegs to the seat and from that to the bars is...
Correct. The bar is different. They used to have an aluminium bar on the Speed 400. This thing has a steel wider bar.
Right.
And the logic they're saying is if you fall off-road and you bend the bar, you can unbend it a little bit and get home. So we're going to use steel bar. There's a set of hand guards on it, which are again plastic hand guards. So I'm not a fan. I want hand guards to have a metal brace inside so that they actually do something. And to give you an example, see Rishad Modi's story on Autocar. He dropped the bike. The handguard got bent out of the way and then the brake lever snapped, which means that the handguard actually didn't do any major work there. So to me, if I were buying the Scrambler, I would get rid of these handguards. Or I would call Big Bad Bikes, get backbusters properly with the aluminium brace, and then that would be an actual set of handguards. So I would say discount the handguards, they're not important. But you've got the bash plate as standard.
That bash plate looks quite serious though.
Actually, the bike itself is more serious than I was expecting, but we'll come to that. You've got the grille over the headlight, which is also standard. And that's the one part that I wish wasn't standard. I should be allowed to choose whether I want it or not, because the screw holes are already there. So if I buy the Scrambler and remove the grille, it's going to look uglier than otherwise. So I wish that Triumph had let that choice to me, but that one unit. So handguards, sump guard, grille over the headlight is all standard. And they actually have built what to me is is a Scrambler. We've talked about something being a Scrambler so far, but we've never actually seen what a Scrambler needs to do in the daily life. I think the Triumph Scrambler 400X is the first motorcycle that approaches the idea of the duality of roles correctly.
Okay.
So is it an off-roader? Mildly. It is mild enough to do well off-road and mild enough to not compromise its capability every day in the city.
Like, does it feel like, hey, let's have fun with this? Or does it feel serious?
So here's the fun part, right? We know that the Speed 400 had a vibration thing that we complained about. We said 4,500 RPM, your pegs start to vibrate, and then the vibration progressively increases. And I had said in the previous reviews, FAQs and MotorInc First, that by 6,000 RPM, you will complain about the vibration.
Right.
And the issue is not that there's so much vibration. The issue is it is so effortless before that the fact that it is not effortless after, to me, is too much of a contrast to take.
Right.
So there are two things that I've understood about this Triumph since then. So what Bajaj told us is that when they told Triumph UK about the vibration issue, the first thing they said is, but we think the vibration levels are okay for international riders. This is true because our expectation of vibration being low are much more stringent than most of the world around, because I think we come from very low capacity under stress singles into serious motorcycles, whereas the Europeans come from very serious, highly strung vibrating singles to twins and triples, and therefore a vibrating single is not automatically a problem for them. So there is an expectation gap there, one. Two, it turns out that the first batch of Speed 400s that they built and gave out to the media had what they call variability in vibration. So there were certain units that vibrated quite a bit less, and there were certain units that vibrated quite a bit more. And since then, they have worked on identifying what the quality issues were so that the vibration level is the same. So what Bajaj has done since then is they've tightened the screws on that part of the process, and now all Speed 400s vibration levels will be similar.
Okay.
On the Scrambler, what happens is you've got a very thick rubber pad on the foot pegs, which isolates you a little bit, and they've worked on making the vibration more stable. So it's less annoying than the Speed 400. I'm hoping that that means the Speed 400 will also show less vibration now. But the duality of effortless, oh, so much effort, it's still there and it still annoys me. It's not gone away, but it's less in scale than before.
Okay.
But remembering that, what I did is on the Tamhini road stretch out, which is a twisty, slightly uphill.
Sorry, quickly. Did you mention about the tires?
Thank you for bringing up tires. So you've got 19-inch a wheel in the front, and they've got MRF curve big block pattern tires. Big block patterns are usually designed to do something like 70% tarmac and 30% off-road. If you become more serious off-road, then you have to look for more serious tires, obviously. I would say if you're a more street-oriented guy, I would not only look for better tires, I'd also go to the Speed 400's brake pads if I could. Because to take the bite off the front, they've basically not put sintered pads on the Scrambler.
The reason I asked about the tires was because to do with the engine vibration and all of that was going down with the gearing, right? It will get more grunty, but it'll rev through more.
Correct.
And I was expecting you to say that, okay, this is getting finished before it starts, but you said it was, it's fine.
No, I'm going to still say what I said, what I should have said for the Speed 400, which is if this bike had a red line at 7,000 RPM instead of 10, I think we would all be very kicked with this bike. So tires, brake pads, suspension, and therefore the ground clearance, seat height, etc., handlebar is the change. So what we did was, when I left the hotel, I knew that the first, let's call it about 50 kilometers or something, is going to be twisty roads on awesome tarmac.
Right.
But I decided I'm not going to pick up the revs on this bike. I'm going to ride it below 6,000 RPM. And honestly, I had a fantastic ride. The bike was effortless. It did not feel slow. Was it lightning quick like a 390 Duke would have been in that situation, or this bike would have been if I was revving it out? No. But at no point did I feel like it lacked performance or I was struggling to overtake the odd few trucks that I had to overtake or anything. It felt completely at home. You'd get to about 100, 105-ish peacefully. No sense of strain, no sense of anything going wrong. And there's enough grunt, because remember, the Speed 400 is already a very flexible motorcycle in terms of how the motor and the gearing work together. This is perhaps even more flexible because the gearing is lower. So you're just opening throttle out of the corner, not making too many gear shifts. It's brilliant. I loved it.
Oh, wow.
When I hit the Telbaila section, I saw a narrow road. Let's call it about this one.
One sec, sorry. Before you get to Telbaila. See, I know these roads, so I'm like imagining the ride through them.
Yeah.
They're fast and flowing. Even though it's a ghat section,
Yeah.
the tarmac is good. It's got a good amount of weight. There are nice hairpin bends. There are some really sharp ones.
Yeah.
So how did it do with the tires and the size?
Did really well. Okay, so the 19-inch wheel does not get in the way of your handling a lot. There is a sense of heft and weight to this motorcycle, which I actually enjoyed.
Right.
Because if you remember, I had said that the Speed 400 feels almost too small and too light. This motorcycle does not feel small. Although the tank is the same, the bigger handlebar gives you a sense of I'm riding a larger machine. It gives you a sense of I'm sitting a little bit taller and looking down on the world. And there is now a sense of weight because this motorcycle is heavier. Okay, so it's 9 kilos odd, but it makes a difference because a lot of it is in unsprung mass. So you do feel like you're putting a little bit more work into it, and it is a nice, rewarding motorcycle in that sense. So it does corner well. You can correct your line a little bit in the middle of the corner, and if you start to ride aggressively like that, where now and then you're having to trail brake correct, then you might think that a slightly better set of tires would be required. But otherwise, if you're just smoothly flowing from corner to corner, you can get to very serious pace without needing any help on any department. It just works. I love it.
You didn't have wet roads at any point?
No, I didn't have any wet sections at all. I anticipate that this tire will feel slippery in the wet.
Okay.
The curve tire has never been very good in the wet. This is still a MRF curve. That's curve with a K. So I'm expecting that once the rains come, there will be some amount of complaining about this tire.
All right.
So the Telbaila section is narrow, this wide. And when I hit it, there was tarmac. Freshly laid tarmac.
Oh.
So I said, okay, I'll take a detour or two. Right? Because this route, I think, is already 170-80 kilometers. So I thought, okay, we'll take a few detours. That lasted 3 kilometers. And I come over a crest, and at the crest, the road basically stops. It's like the bulldozer turned around and went back. Right? So right over the crest is where my GoPro froze. So whatever, I think I had amazing off-road footage, which I can't share with you because GoPro has still not figured out how to make a camera that won't hang at the most critical junctures, be that as it may, and my frustrations, whatever. It basically came down to compacted rocks. Like you compact them before you lay a road, except that this is after the road has eroded away.
All right.
So there are potholes in the middle of all of this, and I'm going through this. So I stood up on the pegs. Riding position is pretty natural. The contact point up to your knee is natural. The way I stand, my knees are just behind the tank. So I have a little bit less grip than I feel I should have, but I didn't struggle with that at all. Stood, went. At some point I looked down, I'm doing 45 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
And the wheels are clearly doing a lot of work, but I'm more or less insulated from it. Between me standing up and the suspension working, I didn't feel a thing.
Oh, wow.
Came out onto very old tarmac. So it's undulating and flowing, and that part has crests. So it crests and trough, and when you go over the crest, come into a trough, go back onto a crest, it'll bottom the back sometimes. So mental note, maybe rear suspension could have been stiffer. But that mental note never got used at all because it worked so well in so many departments that if that were my bike, I'd totally be okay with it bottoming here and there because it does so many of the other things so well.
Okay.
So preload on our bike was, I think, third notch from the softest.
Okay.
So there is the opportunity to go a little bit stiffer and make the bike rise a little bit in terms of ride quality and avoid the bottoming. But honestly, I probably won't touch it for the first 3-4 months because it just felt right. Then I came to what should be really bad, which is strips of tarmac followed by strips of stones because the water has washed off part. Nothing. It just went through. So it's, okay, you're through. Great. Then I hit a uphill over a small hill. So think about, I'm going to say about a kilometer and a bit of uphill, and the rocks were the size of my hand. And I'm approaching it, I'm doing 30 kmph because I'm processing, saying, what am I supposed to do now? If I fall, I don't know.
How steep?
Steep and hairpin, and 2 hairpins in the middle of it.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, if I fall, even if I lift the bike by myself, I'm basically stranded until somebody helps me. If I get hurt, that's 45 minutes of being hurt. Before
So you were being adventurous.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that road to get that bad. And it was a lonely road. By this point, I'm, let's say, 20 kilometers in, and I've seen 3 guys go by. So I know that if I have a problem on this section, it's not like I can turn the bike around and go back and then go the long way around. I'm stuck. Okay, what do you do now? So I put it in first, went up the hill. Hey, it's going quite easily. I put it up in second, started going. Then it hit a slightly steeper section. Rev started falling, go back to first. But I came out the other side feeling like, hey, that was almost too easy.
Ah.
So I didn't bounce the thing off any rocks. I managed to pick a route which didn't have a ground clearance issue as such.
And at the bars, it wasn't like it was
Nothing.
fighting you.
It was not like it was bouncing me around and stuff. As long as I kept the momentum up, I kept the weight on the back wheel rather than the front a little bit. I was really impressed.
Nice.
Yeah. So I came out the other side, came onto the tarmac, and the tarmac almost felt boring because we'd already done so much work with this Scrambler, which is what I mean by saying, to me, this is the first time I'm seeing a Scrambler that does the Scrambler thing.
Right.
I had a great ride up the Twisties. Then it went mildly off-road. I'm not going to say it is serious off-road because it wasn't. But it went mildly off-road feeling like, yeah, I was designed for this. There's no crisis here. And then you come out on the other side unscathed, unbattered, unbruised, untired, feeling like that was a section. And now I have twisty roads again, back into highway.
And did you have luggage on your bike?
Yeah, I did because I'd gone overnight. So that much of the bag was there.
Okay.
And so between the clothes and all of that, it was a fairly large, my 40-liter Kriega with, I'm going to say about 5 kilos or 6 kilos of luggage in it.
Okay.
Laptop, everything was packed.
And you
into
had,
it.
I mean, you could mount it. Acha, you have your straps that with
Yeah.
which,
So no, the grab rail is very ugly,
Hmm.
but it is also quite useful, as ugly things sometimes are. So it's quite easy to mount luggage onto the back.
All right.
And I was able to do what I like to do, which is to move the luggage as far up the seat as possible and create space for myself because I don't like it touching my back the whole time. So standing up the luggage didn't bother me, and Kriegas mount pretty securely, so not bouncing around or anything. So over the crest you'd land. It's not like you're hitting it on your bum and stuff. So it was actually a very pleasant experience. On the highway, again, on the last section, I said, okay, let's pick up the pace and see what happens. Let's get past the 6,000 RPM.
So up until now, you never really had to go past that mark?
I didn't bother because it was just moving.
It was working.
Yeah, it was working. Which is why I said, if they had the red line set at 7,000, I would not complain. I would say this is how they designed it. And at 7,000 RPM, this bike is probably making 33, 35 bhp anyway.
Interesting.
Right? So may not be 30 bhp, but yeah, it'll be 30-ish, I think. So if it's already making 30 bhp and it's doing it so effortlessly, I don't know that I need the last 3,000 RPM and that 40 bhp number.
Wow.
Right? Once I started revving it out, all the memories of the Speed 400 came running back.
Oh.
Because it's fast. Look, don't get me wrong. It's fast. It's quick. Not 390 kind
Just
of.
not satisfying.
Yeah, flavor quick is different. Okay, the 390 is a mental flavor. This is a very calm flavor, but it will go quickly. But then there's vibration, then there is that sense of strain from the engine, and it's complaining a little bit. And it's not complaining so much. Like, for example, if you remember the old Enfields, when you tried to max the top speed out, 120-ish, the amount of vibration and complaints was so much that I remember the first Thunderbird, I almost went wide because the bike was vibrating so much it couldn't keep itself in the corner. It's not that. It's just that abhi tak it was effortless. Now I am all, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do
Oh
it.
my.
You know, it's like an employee, you give them work, they're very diligent at it. Till 7 o'clock they will do. But even if you pay them overtime, 7:01 they will start complaining and they won't stop till they leave for home. So to me, if Triumph,
I don't even know.
so I think if Triumph were to pay attention to the disparity in vibration above and below, not the quantity of vibration, the disparity in vibration, I think there is a smashingly good engine in there. The frame already works really well. We said this for the Speed 400 suspension. I'm saying this for the Scrambler suspension. There is a difference in how they go through the city for sure. The Speed 400 feels very composed and very good at dealing with potholes. The Scrambler is not that good at it. But that's because it needs to have that ability to go a little bit faster through much harsher stuff. So it can't do the everyday stuff as slickly as the 400. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely.
Is it any less inconvenient aside from seat height? Like, I mean, you know, to turn around and all that.
No.
So city-wise, use-wise, it's...
I'd totally get one. In fact, I would not get the Speed 400. I would totally spend the 30 odd thousand rupees extra and get the 400X.
There's such a distinct difference between the Speed 400 conversation and this.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, engine-wise and performance-wise, that was good too.
Yeah.
But here, clearly, it has a purpose.
Think about it like the Hunter versus the Classic 350, which emerged from the same platform with minor differences. But you know that the entire engineering of the J series was done for the Classic.
Right.
All the effort was put into the Classic. When you ride the Scrambler, I feel like the Scrambler is the bike the 400cc engine platform was developed for. And the Speed 400 is relatively speaking a derivative and not the actual product. So to me, I like the Speed 400 for certain specific aspects of it, like suspension or the finish quality, etc. The Scrambler has those. But then it raises the bar. And if you've ridden any Scrambler in India before and you know exactly what bike I'm talking about, go ride the 400, then you'll understand why I complained so volubly and so hard about the Scramblers that have come before it. Not even the Royal Enfield Scram comes into this picture.
No, that's what this feels like. Everything's coming together to create one story, which was meant to be, right?
The Scrambler is just a level above. And if I were in your position where you're sitting with 2 bookings, pay the 30,000 rupees extra and get the Scrambler.
And what if you're short?
Learn how to ride tall bikes. This I've said multiple times. Tall bikes are a skill. You can learn it. Once you learn it, you can ride any tall bike that you ever encounter. So if you decide to paint yourself into a corner, say, I'm short, I can't ride tall bikes, you're just writing off like a whole world of motorcycles just because you refuse to get over a mental block. Is it inconvenient till you learn? Absolutely it is. There are lots of other inconvenient things in your life that you've overcome already. This should be one of the easiest things to do.
On the highway, what speed would you end up sitting at?
100, 105. Because beyond that is where the vibration starts. So it's basically settled back.
Of 6 then. Okay.
You'll basically settle back at 6.
Okay.
So that's 100, 105 is roughly where you'll sit. It's very smooth at 80. So if you're a relatively slower highway tourer, 80 will feel great. If you're relatively quick, you can't really sit beyond 100 until you get used to the vibration. Say, yeah, this is my bike. This is what it is. I'm okay.
I find it so funny that more often than not, irrespective of where we're going in the displacement class, 100, 110 seems to be this place where...
First, legally, you can't do much more than this in any case. And to me, the idea of latitude is not what you'll actually do. The idea of latitude is you should have the flexibility to do a variety of things depending on what your agenda for that day is. For example, I have done days where I have to cover 1200 kilometers. On a 1200 kilometer day, I want to sit at the highest possible comfortable speed I can because that day is the distance day. But there are tourism days. On a tourism day, I'm riding 200 kilometers and I have to stop at 19 places. There is no point in me doing 100 everywhere.
Right.
So I'm going to do 80. But my bike should be flexible enough, fuel efficient enough and comfortable enough to say, you want to do 80, let's do 80. You want to do 100, let's do 100. Tomorrow they open an expressway and say sit at 120. I should be able to sit at 120.
So would you be able to sit at 120 on?
Yes, but with some amount of vibration in your hand and tingles and all of that, which you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's my point, because like for a 400, that's where the expectations are, okay, can it do a little bit more? Like we discussed for, like, let's say with the 390, it can easily sit at 110 or something.
Yeah.
With 110 and 120, it'll do easy, right? So that's why I asked about the highway, like to travel with.
You can. When I'm saying you're buying a 400, you're going to live with this motorcycle for 3, 4, 5, 6 years before you move on to something larger or something different. For that duration, I would like you to have a motorcycle that does a whole bunch of things easily so that as you grow as a rider, as the conditions allow you to do more, you can do all of those things without having to mess with your motorcycle or change your motorcycle. So the idea is not that, oh, there is vibration at 120. If you can live with that vibration, that level of vibration at 120, you're great. It's fine.
I actually am disappointed with this idea that I think cruise speed should be between 120 and 100, especially when you're getting to like close to 40 horsepower bikes.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that should be there.
I agree.
Why is it not there is something I do not get, because right from whenever we started testing bikes, even the small, like even the, let's say the REs, right? 350. And that's an old school 350.
Yeah.
That's okay at 100. Right?
Yeah,
and
still,
this is a modern day.
Yeah, and it's just the change in vibration tonality. It is not, I don't think it's mechanically more sensitive. I don't think it's going to break down. I don't think there's a reliability challenge. It's just that it got up to 100 feeling like, bro, this is the easiest thing in the world.
You know what? In my head, you have created two parts. There's this one picture, there's one half, and there's the other half. Like until you came to the point where you said you got to the highway and you went past 6,000, I was just thinking about this as such a fluid, such a versatile motorcycle, and just like, man, like I was imagining those roads and everything, right?
Exactly.
And then suddenly the vibe changed. I mean, I can't say that changed dramatically, but it changed. Like you said that, I remember it from the Speed now.
It's exactly my point. So, so when Rishabh was riding in the city the other day, this is what I told him to do. I said, you go from the office to the toll booth, which is a 4.5 kilometer run. Go below 6. Come back below 6. You've got 8 kilometers below 6. Now, it's middle of the afternoon, so it's empty. And now I want you to stay above 6 consciously for the next 8 kilometers, where you do the same loop again, hit the same roads. He came back and he says, I can't believe how much of a difference there is. And it's the difference which is bugging me. But handling, tires, brakes, suspension, ground clearance, it just clicks into place one after the other. This is a very nice motorcycle.
Is it a pivot bike for you of sorts?
In what sense?
Like, looking in that price range, is this going to be a motorcycle that you first refer to when...
No. To me, it needs to have more character for that. This is still a very subtle motorcycle. I think a lot of people will discover how much they like this motorcycle a year and a half after using it
So
regularly.
I've not ridden it. I'm just butting in here. I've seen it standing in the office, and it looks really hot.
It looks great. Yeah, I absolutely agree. It looks great. It looks substantial. It looks hefty. It looks like the money you paid for it. And the Speed 400, it honestly doesn't look like that because it's just so much more
With
compact.
this twin exhaust and all.
Yeah. So, and it sounds great too.
Oh.
The Speed 400 sounds kind of anonymous. That has the same kind of distinct exhaust beat like a classic 350 has an exhaust beat that you identify as a classic. That has that kind of sound.
It's
I'm
kinda
pointing there
loudish.
because the bike is actually over there.
It's kind of loudish also, right?
It's kind of loud and it's very distinct. You will hear, so on the GoPro footage, I think we have some pretty decent audio capture this time. So you will hear it rapping through the gears, and because we are low in the revs, you will hear it coming on, and it does actually sound very nice.
Okay, so when you say it should have had more personality, what areas? I mean, what? Obviously, there's something in specific aside from engine. Engine, you made clear.
So to me, if the engine ran effortlessly all the way to the red line, the motorcycle would automatically have the character of being totally effortless. Do whatever you want. It doesn't have that. And to me, that is the big... See, look at the 390 Duke. Let's take the chassis and engine as two separate items. What character does the chassis really have? It has lots of capacity and capability. So does the Scrambler in a very different flavor. But it's the engine that brings back the idea of the madness and the on the 390. Why do we think of it as mad? Because that engine does those things. You will keep asking yourself the question saying, what does this engine...
The chassis is the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's efficient, it's precise, it does a thing.
Ultra.
Right? And the engine says, yeah, I can do all of that, but let's do something more fun. The Scrambler doesn't have that sense of, like a joy outside of effortless, easy and calm. Some of you will like this. And a lot of you coming up from small motorcycles will think that itself is so overwhelming that you can't imagine the world beyond it. But promise you, give it a year, ride seriously, you will overcome that very quickly. And what I worry about with subtle motorcycles, and I've said this before, I've heard all kinds of feedback about it, and I honestly don't care because I know this will happen. If the motorcycle is super subtle to start with, as soon as you make that step and match the motorcycle, then the motorcycle falls below you and becomes kind of dull. So to me, if this motorcycle had more character, the engine was just more happy to go up to its red line with no sense of strain, I think this would be a lot more powerful as a machine emotionally. Today, I can tell you this, if you're buying a 400cc Triumph, the Scrambler 400X undoubtedly is the one I would put my money on.
All my questions were leading up to travel with, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be great if you're a calm temperament person.
But would you recommend it over a Himalayan? Even
I can't recommend anything about the Himalayan right now because the 452 will come.
No, existing Himalayan, like what people...
No, I don't think the 411 is a great travel bike anyway. I have always said that the bike is too slow for its own good. And that's what I'm hoping the 452 will fix. So does the Himalayan have great suspension? Yes. So does the Scrambler. Is the Himalayan comfortable ergonomically? Yes. So is the Scrambler. Is the Scrambler the same kind of performance as the Himalayan? No, it's already much quicker. Yeah. Even at the effortless mode, it is quicker. Does it feel lighter on its feet? Wildly. So to me, I've never thought of the Himalayan and the Scram as fantastic motorcycles anyway. To me, it is now the oldest Royal Enfield and the poorest Royal Enfield. As soon as the 452 comes, we will see what the new playing field is. And Royal Enfield has shown the ability to turn tables on people.
Correct.
So if it turns the table on Scrambler, we are golden because that means we get two awesome. Off-road capable motorcycles into the mix of what we could choose from. That's amazing. So will the 452 be better than Scrambler? If Royal Enfield's engineering record is anything to go by, yes. But does that make the Scrambler worse? No, it is the best Triumph, I think, in this class that you can buy for sure. Anybody who's buying a Speed 400...
I started with the Himalayan specifically because everything you've said about the Scram applies for the Himalayan as well.
Yeah, the difference is if you remember riding a Himalayan 411 off-road, the Scrambler will feel modern. Whereas the Himalayan feels old.
Everything you say about the Scram is more modern.
Yeah.
No two ways. That's the sense you get.
Yeah.
But the Himalayan, and surprisingly, despite it being slower, despite it being heavier, despite all its issues, the kind of following it has.
It has character. It does have character.
And people have just kind of... So that was the thing in my head. Like when you were talking about going through the rough sections, doing the highway with luggage, I was just thinking, okay.
No, but I'm telling you, the Scrambler is the most cohesive... is the more cohesive of the two Triumphs right now. I think Triumph will have more 400s coming. The more 400s that come, I think the Scrambler will continue to shine in there.
Okay. Adventure?
I'm increasingly feeling that this is going to be a retro-oriented line. So I think Steve Sargent, who's the product head, I think, or whatever, he showed a third bike that looks like a cafe racer now. So you're going to get a Speed, you're going to get the Scrambler now, and you're going to get the cafe racer. And whatever iterations come after this will all be, I think, in the retro mold. And if they do that, then the Tiger is off the table for this platform for sure. But if they're going to, they have what? They had 14 showrooms in July. They have 35 showrooms in 25 cities today, and they want to be at 100 plus by March. If they're going to fill out showrooms at this scale with motorcycles, they're going to need more 400s. Okay. 3 we know of.
Sorry, we moved to showroom, so I know we're going towards winding up. But ride modes of any sort? I just thought about.
You have ABS, off-road ABS, where you turn the rear off. You have the ability to turn traction control off, and both individually, they're not connected to each other. So you can do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's there. All the little basic things are in place.
Throttle maps or anything like that?
No.
No. Okay.
But it's a very mild bike. You remember the Speed 400 and the Scrambler both have these really nice, stocky, great gearing. You can take speed breakers in third and fourth gear kind of gearing. So it doesn't need much. And it doesn't have snap anyway. Right. It has torque. It doesn't have snap. When you have snap, I can imagine that a gentler mode for mud and all of that would be useful. Right. There's no snap, so it's easy.
Okay, nice.
In that sense, I think of it as a friendly off-roader rather than a super capable off-roader.
So guys, just for those who aren't off-road experience, typically off-road bikes will have a lot of torque low down in the rev range. You don't have to work the engine hard. It's supposed to let you chug through stuff. And even the more powerful bikes, you'll find that bottom end torque is what matters to make it easier for the rider to make his or her way through, right? So this character sounds good for the Scrambler.
Yeah, and it does it easily, which is what I enjoy about it. It's not like I'm working too hard or the engine is working too hard. It's just like, this is, we'll deal with it. It's nice.
Should I pull out the questions?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. You pulled out some queries from the social posts.
Yeah.
So top questions that people have asked. Price, is it worth it?
So I think that the Speed 400's price will also come up. I know that the Scrambler's price will also slowly rise over time. Today, the difference is 30,000 rupees between the two. I cannot tell you that the difference will remain 30,000. I can't tell you that they will remain 2.3 and 2.6 lakhs either. So today, I think the Scrambler is a good motorcycle at a reasonable price. The Speed 400 appears to be exceptional value. Maybe it is, but it's not this good a motorcycle overall.
Versus Speed 400, we've already covered, versus Super Meteor. Tier 4, good for highway, 1 tour a month, no off-road.
Look, the Super Meteor is going to feel more special than the Scram on that use cycle. But the Scrambler has the better suspension than the Super Meteor. So what you're choosing is comfort versus appeal. So if you want to look better when you're doing these things in your tier 4 town, I think the Super Meteor is the right bike for you. But if you'd rather be comfortable and actually cover distances and feel happy and get through the bad roads in the area feeling like, hey, this is all easy, the Scrambler will do better for you.
Awesome.
Okay, test rides will help you decide between the two because to me, they don't cross over at any level.
Makes sense. Yeah. Pillion Comfort.
Honestly, we didn't put anybody on a Pillion on this. I think we put 230, 240 kilometers in total between bringing here and whatever riding we've done. We've not taken a Pillion on. And this is not a review. This is just our first impression of the motorcycle, which happens to be over this time, over whatever, 220, 230 kilometers of riding. So it's not comprehensive. A review will happen. This motorcycle will now go back to Bajaj. Then it'll come back to us for a review when we'll actually put it through its paces. And then we'll have our opinion on MotorInc View. At that point, we'll try and attack service, quality, pillions, and all of those kinds of issues.
Best in segment?
Depends on how you define the segment. If Scramblers as a segment right now, yes. We don't know how it will change once the Himalayan 452 and the Scram 452 also appear onto this class. But if you think about SD Scrambler or whatever, far superior motorcycle. It's not even in the same ballpark.
Okay.
Oh, and one more thing that I learned is some people have been asking how all Speed 400s are registered as Bajaj Speed 400s. And you will register this as the Bajaj Scrambler 400X on your registration documentation. So it turns out that because Triumph Motorcycles India as an organization no longer exists, they can't put a registered office for Triumph in India anymore on Vahan. So the only office that they can put is the Bajaj Auto office. And therefore it picks that name and therefore it gets registered as the Bajaj Speed 400.
Ooh, my God.
But KTM registers as KTM 390 Duke because KTM India does have a registered office. So Vahan does recognize that as an organization.
It's a strange thing, man.
Yeah.
How does that even happen? Okay, crazy. Last one, DIY. Triumph, not OTC parts.
Yeah, so Triumph had fairly regressive policies in their previous avatar. One of those regressive policies was that they would not sell you over-the-counter parts so that you could work on your own motorcycle. They would say, what do you want? Brake pads. Okay, you bring the bike, we'll change your brake pads. No, I don't. I'm going on a tour. I just want to take the brake pads with me. Now you sit and convince them that this is not a hanky-panky thing. This is an actual brake pad purchase, which is a hedge for a long tour. They were that kind of reluctant about everything. So this is where this question is coming from. Today, the Triumph service network is taken over by the same guys who created the KTM and the Bajaj Pro Biking service networks. They've done a tremendous job of it, if you ask me. So I would suspect that some of these ulta sida things of no OTC sales and all that will transiently happen. Some dealers will violate their own internal policies perhaps and say, we will not sell it over the counter. But I don't think, and I'll double check, but I don't think that the official policy says that don't sell parts to people.
Okay.
I've bought KTM parts from KTM counters for years together and had work done outside. So I don't see this as a problem. I would say the challenge is, can you make your service network so attractive, so high quality, so effortless that there is no reason for you to look outside at all.
Correct.
To me, that is the right way to do this.
Absolutely.
You should bring a situation where the guy can't imagine why he would buy an OTC part at all.
Right. Which was the case with the KTMs.
Largely. I have also heard here and there dealer stories saying,
I mean, in terms of cost, like,
yeah, it was
there's
easy.
no reason to get it service. I mean, from a cost standpoint, there was no issue there.
There was no issue. No.
Availability was always strong.
No, and they were quite gracious about warranty claims and stuff also. Without too much chick, you would get work done and move on, right? So they had a lot of these fundamental things very right from a long time ago. They still are. And honestly, we did ask MotorInc viewers about which brands, what kind of service, what's going on. And Bajaj has honestly got a surprisingly good report from there. Whereas, for example, people crib about TVS a lot. People crib about Tata service a lot. So there are brands that stand out because there's always some amount of complaint against them. Royal Enfield is very sporadic, surprisingly. Bajaj, people were saying they go out of their way to help. It is so easy. Parts are cheap and just check tick box after tick box after tick box. It was like, wow, they must be doing something really right.
No, I've seen this with KTM actually, that they were quite responsive. The first gen Duke, remember you had to, when you were getting it serviced, you'd have to buy oil by the liter in the cans.
Yeah.
So, and you'd always have this leftover, which you would misplace. So next time you spend all over again.
Right.
And then the next time, by the time they got to the second gen, they started getting motul by the barrel, right?
Right.
So then they were charging you exactly for that 3.1 liters that you needed or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So they worked towards making it more cost effective and making it easier for you to manage also.
No, so they've been an effective network. And I think those things that they've learned will transfer now to the Triumph India service network, which is now
Do they have accessories and stuff?
They will have a few things. So on the display there was a bike with a top box, a duffel bag, and a couple of other things.
Top box, duffel bag.
Tank bag and stuff like that. They didn't give us pricing for those things yet. But to me, manufacturer luggage should only be purchased when it integrates into the motorcycle itself. So like the side panniers, the plastic side panniers that you'd often get with mid-displacement touring motorcycles, those make sense. Tank bags, duffels and all of this, you just find them a heck of a lot cheaper, similar quality or better in the aftermarket with brands like Rhinox or Viaterra or whatever. I would simply never ever buy a top box from Triumph because they're marking it up for the brand and you're not earning anything, gaining from it. Top boxes mount the same way as GV would mount them or somebody else would mount them. So there's no benefit to be gained from this. So bespoke protection parts, like a crash bar designed to fit into that motorcycle, maybe. Smaller parts like mirrors and stuff where aftermarket quality can be significantly worse than what the manufacturer is willing to give you. Yes. Luggage, I would just never buy it from a manufacturer. Except for plastic panniers, which fit into the bike. You don't add any hardware and then you take them off and the bike looks like it was coming out of the showroom. That's the only situation where I'd spend money with a manufacturer for luggage.
So basically it's the Speed 400, but it's been raised up. It's got more travel, 19-inch front, different tires, more chunky obviously. Seat to foot peg is the same, handlebars different, it's wider, it's steel, not aluminium because it has to be sturdy to take a hit if it falls. The engine is the same, but the gearing has changed the front and the rear sprocket to give it more grunt at lower revs.
Only the front sprocket. No
Only
rear
the front.
sprocket change.
Oh, sorry.
14-tooth front.
No, because you said the chain would have to be longer. So
no, I'm saying if I had a Speed 400, I'd get the Scramblers and put it on that.
So the chain anyways would work. No, so you don't have to worry about the chain at all. It's smaller. So it works, right? So yeah, so only the front sprocket has changed. Everything else is the same. The exhaust looks different. The bike sounds great. The engine has a lot of grunt, works effortlessly up to 6,000 RPM, and from everything I've heard, will be easy to manage off-road in terms of its agility and ease because of the grunt as well. And on tarmac through the twisties, it felt more weighty, but it was enjoyable. Didn't get in the way at all. Felt like a more substantial motorcycle because of it as well. So we did the rough road bit as well. The disc brakes are larger.
Front disc is larger, yeah.
Front disc is larger, 320 instead of 300.
And non-sintered pads,
And
so the bite
non-sintered
is less.
So yeah,
So it can feel a little weak when you're trying to ride faster.
minus marking.
If you're going to ride a road a lot, just go back and get the Speed 400 sintered pads instead. Solved.
Okay. So through the B roads, through the rough roads, enjoyable. Got onto the highway, went past 6,000 RPM, and the old Speed 400 character came through, which is not terrible vibration, but vibration and a sense of not really being
As effortless as it was just moments ago. But you don't have to. If you just sit at 6,
yeah,
you'll be fine.
100 kph is doable. My grouse was that why can't 400cc bikes just do 120? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
In the city, the rear suspension did bottom out sometimes over lumpy tarmac, but not a problem. Shumi said that you could just leave it like that. For most people, it'll be fine. In the city, over potholes, not as well settled as the Speed 400 was, but not a complaint. This is the default of the two Triumphs to buy. Despite that,
Correct.
And in terms of managing in city traffic, it was fine. Commuting, because of that grunty nature, just works.
Yeah.
Touring, yes, he had a small piece of luggage on the back, easy to tie on. Because of the ugly grab rails,
Yeah.
they helped. Yes, because of the ugly grab rails, they helped. Over the counterparts, we're not sure of right now. The service network has expanded dramatically. Accessories were shown, but nothing essential. Things you could buy from other providers of gear and luggage, etc. And you would probably get them. If I had done this in school, if they only taught automobiles in schools, So yeah, the accessories, we're done with that. And
Okay, that's it.
price, 270.
263.
260.
It'll become 270. It's just a matter of how many months before you are right.
Okay, and yes, the most interesting part, the part that I had no clue about, it's a Bajaj Scrambler 400X.
On the registration document only, if I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. If you have more questions, as usual, please leave us a comment. If there's specific details you want, more details you want, or want to discuss something else entirely, it's all good. Please leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. MotorInc First, again, is available audio only on Spotify, Google, Apple, and Amazon.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for watching.